Midnight 30. Good evening and welcome to our English news edition. Coming to you from Canal, Algérie to the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, holds an official welcome ceremony to the French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne at the premises of the presidency. The Algerian-French Economic Forum, co-chaired by the two countries' premiers, is held here in Algiers with a view to boosting cooperation and promoting economic exchanges. The President of the Union of Comoros confirms his participation at the upcoming Arab Summit following the invitation addressed to him by President Tebboune. And we wrap up our news edition with a marvelous stopover at Al Qasayriya Souq or Market, a magic land of spices in the country. Good evening, those are today's headlines. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, gave an official welcome on Monday to the French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne at the premises of the presidency. The French Prime Minister greeted the members of the Algerian delegation that were present, composed of Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdelrahman, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad Ramtan Al-Amamra, Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency of the Republic Abdelaziz Khalaf, the Minister of Interior Brahim Marad, Minister of Justice Abdelrashid Tabbi, as well as the Ambassador of Algeria to Paris, Saïd Moussi. For his part, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, also greeted members of the delegation that accompanied the French Prime Minister. Later on, the President of the Republic held enlarged discussions with the French Prime Minister in the presence of the delegations of both countries. After the audience, the French Prime Minister had this to say to news reporters.
I would like to thank the President Tebboune for the meeting we had the day after the 5th High-Level Intergovernmental Committee. Over a month ago, the President Macron and the President Tebboune affirmed in a joint statement the desire to build a renewed relation based on strong ambitions, a solid cooperation and a special attention to the youth of our countries. Coming to Algiers with a large ministerial delegation, the quality of the welcome given by the President of the Republic and all the Algerian government and the richness of our exchanges are the proof of our determination to act and to build together. Yesterday, the High-Level Intergovernmental Committee made it possible to initiate a new step in our work by the visits and the regular exchanges on the economic, political and technical level. I seize this opportunity to thank Prime Minister bin Abdelrahman for his warm welcome. I have the feeling that together we will move forward and that the High-Level Intergovernmental Committee will allow us to found a new, renewed and long-term partnership to benefit of our youth. Our discussion will continue with the President Tebboune, whom I wish to thank very sincerely for the invitation and this honor. I would like to tell him again that he can count on the mobilization and determination of my government. Our cooperation is essential and we put it at the service of our two countries. Thank you.
Et que ce CIHN nous a permis de fonder
Co-chaired by the Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman and his French counterpart Elizabeth Borne, the Algerian-French Economic Forum kicked off Monday morning with the participation of many businessmen, operators and investors from both countries. This business meeting of 2 days that is held under the theme for a renewed economic partnership will essentially be based on the investment opportunities in Algeria thanks to a favorable new law of investment of which the implementing texts have just came into force. The Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman indicated that the Algerian-French Economic Forum confirms the political will of the two heads of state to move forward towards a new conception of economic partnership based on the principles of the Algiers Declaration signed last August, affirming that it is a direct call for economic operators to contribute to the establishment of a solid partnership relying on complementarity and common interest. This Algerian-French Economic Forum will create a sustainable dynamic to economic exchanges between the two countries. This event was attended by hundreds of Algerian and French businessmen alike, making it a great opportunity to create partnership in various sectors. Manal Ammari with the details.
Algerian and French businessmen focus on a refurbished economic partnership that showcases both countries' determination to revitalize bilateral cooperation. The expectation here is the revival of these relations, since there is a lot of work to be done between Algeria and France. We have hope regarding this meeting that many aspects will be concretized through other meetings that will continue to develop outside of this event. For companies that want to develop business partnerships with Algerian operators, we have on the French side implemented a series of mechanisms that will finance companies and their investment and implementation strategies, and additionally help with securing their economic partnerships. During this forum, economic operators identified investment opportunities, namely in the sector of renewable energies, the pharmaceutical industry, agriculture, as well as the agri-food industry. We expect quick actions, no matter how small, since once they're accumulated, they turn into a great collective victory. We're hoping for a win-win partnership between the two countries. On this occasion, we will have B2B partnerships between Algerian and French companies. In the ceramics sector, we would like to partner with French companies to enter the European market. Economic operators focused on the increasingly attractive business climate in Algeria, thanks to the new investment law that was recently promulgated. This investment law is a positive sign for us since it is necessary to manufacture here, which is why we need to find the right partners to settle and hopefully in the future be able to export to Africa and become Algeria's export hub, as was stated by the Prime Minister. Algerian and French investors aim to establish a win-win partnership that illustrates the commitment of the two countries' heads of state to revive the bilateral relations stemming from the Algiers Declaration, signed last August.
Algeria and France are on the same wavelength to give new impetus to bilateral relations through new work rules. The Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman affirmed on Sunday that the holding of the 5th high-level Algerian-French Intergovernmental Committee was intended to be an opportunity to deepen the partnership in the economic aspect. Rania Al-Bahri with the details.
Defining the priority areas of bilateral cooperation to put into concrete form the renewed partnership between Algeria and France, in line with the Algiers Declaration, is the main feature of the proceedings of the 5th session of the Algerian-French High-Level Intergovernmental Committee. For the Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman, this is a new stage in bilateral relations likely to build a solid and strategic partnership in various fields. The 5th session of High-Level Intergovernmental Committee allows the two countries to establish a roadmap and an agenda for future common meetings on the horizon of 2030, decided by the presidents of the two countries within the framework of the Declaration of Algiers, which is an opportunity to give a strong impetus to the relations between the two countries. Thanks to the deepening, reassessment and partnership, particularly in the economic aspect, it is imperative to develop a multilateral partnership. This is beneficial for both parties, and to give a new boost to bilateral relations through new working rules that will allow us to move forward in mutually beneficial strategic partnership. For her part, the French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne is estimated that this high-level meeting is a strong sign denoting the commitment of the two countries to revitalize their relations at all levels.
L'ampleur de la délégation ministérielle que je préside est le gage de notre volonté d'avancer simultanément sur tous les domaines d'intérêt commun. 15 ministres et secrétaires d'État du gouvernement.
The number of the ministerial delegation that I'm heading is the guarantee of our desire to move forward simultaneously in all areas of common interest. 15 ministers and government secretaries of state, that is what our relationship deserves. This is the sign of a qualitative stride and a change of scale and pace. We must put ourselves in a position to ensure the regular follow-up of common projects. I'm convinced that the French-Algerian partnership is rich in the face of all challenges in the world. I'm delighted to inaugurate with you the French-Algerian Business Forum, which must be an opportunity of exchange and creation for the private sector, which has its place in our bilateral relationship. This fifth session of the French-Algerian High-Level Intergovernmental Committee was crowned by the signing of a joint press release and several agreements, in particular that concerning the return of 51 antique coins to Algeria. There was also the signature of other agreements in various sectors, such as industry, agriculture, agri-food, work and employment, tourism, higher education, economy, startups and entrepreneurship. At the end, the prime ministers of the two countries held a press briefing where they stressed the importance of a win-win partnership to the benefit of the two countries as peoples.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ramtan Al-Amamra, received the French Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs, Catherine Colonna. The two parties discussed the signed partnership agreements and conventions, as well as ways and means to strengthen cooperation between the two countries. The French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne left Algeria on Monday. She was seen off at the Algiers airport of Houari Boumediene by the Algerian Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdelrahman. The President of the Union of the Comoros, Azali Assoumani, confirmed his participation in the 31st Arab Summit hosted by Algeria, the 1st and 2nd of upcoming November, after having received an invitation addressed to him by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, handed to him by the Minister of Tourism, Yassine Hamadi, in Moroni, in his capacity as the Special Envoy of the President of the Republic. The President of the Comoros Union affirmed that the holding of this summit in Algeria comes in inadequate timing given the multidimensional challenges on the international and regional levels facing the Arab nation. He also expressed his determination to contribute alongside his brother, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, and other Arab leaders to closing the Arab ranks and doubling efforts to promote the joint Arab action to the level of the Arab people's aspirations. Still, with this major upcoming Arab event, the Arab countries are hoping that the decisions that will be taken at the end of this summit will contribute to strengthening joint Arab action, according to Kautar Al-Jouan, the chairwoman of the Women Institute for Development and Peace. Algeria has a big responsibility in this summit. Let's have a listen.
Algeria's summit is special in my opinion since it intervenes in a very difficult context. It differs from other Arab summits insofar as it is held after 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic, knowing that this pandemic consequences are still felt at the cultural and economic levels. So the context is different, not to mention the new developments on the international economic and political scene.
The fourth annual high-level meeting of the energy dialogue between Algeria and the European Union was held on Monday under the co-chairmanship of the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, and the European Commissioner for Energy, Qadri Simpson. This meeting allowed the two parties to review the progress made in the field of energy cooperation and its prospects since the launch of the strategic partnership stemming from the last meeting held in Algiers in 2018. This partnership covers all topics of common interest, namely the development of investments in the exploration and production of hydrocarbons, the perspectives of the development of gas industry, the development of hydrogen electricity, in addition to cooperation in the field of renewable energies and energy efficiency. This meeting will be followed by the holding of the second Algerian European Business Forum on Energy, scheduled for Wednesday. The Algerian authorities are determined to uproot speculation in all its forms so as to ensure a stable market, notably in terms of basic foodstuffs, via a permanent control and severe sanctions. Manal Ammari once again.
Speculation is the main reason for the shortage of several largely consumed products, particularly cooking oil. To overcome this phenomenon, quality control and fraud repression services, as well as members of the national security, increased control to inflict heavy sanctions on speculators that claim that basic foodstuffs are rare due to the lack of production. However, producers affirm that their factories are working at full capacity and that they even doubled their production. We have 3 production lines with a production exceeding 450 tons per day. We produce 6,000 5-liter cylinders, 8,000 2-liter bottles, and 20,000 1-liter bottles per hour. Our storage facilities at the level of our site are at 11,000 tons. Cooking oil manufacturers such as the Bijaya plant benefited from the removal of administrative barriers to guarantee the availability of their products. The launch of this plant aims to put an end to the export of grains and exploiting our resources. The equipment acquired will also allow us to extract all types of oils from all sorts of grains available in Algeria. The President of the Republic gave instructions concerning supporting investors and the removal of all administrative barriers. We are here in Bijaya province to help investors achieve their projects that are related to the extraction of the necessary grains for the production of cooking oil before April. These facilitation measures aim to supply the national market and fight against the unjustified price increase.
In the same context, 23 people involved in speculating main foodstuffs were brought before justice at the level of the Sidi Mohammed court here in Algiers as part of fighting this phenomenon. Let's head to Tindouf and Daras TV to talk about the injustice that the Sahrawi journalists are facing while accomplishing their noble job meant to defy the Moroccan blackout and make their fair cause better known on the international scene. Story by Fatma Zahra bin Farjla, taken up by Rania Al-Bahri.
Despite the repression that they suffer from on a daily basis, and despite the difficult conditions and risks they face, the Sahrawi do not hesitate to face the danger to denounce the abuses committed by the Makhzen forces against their fellow citizens, particularly in the occupied territories. The occupier opted for a total blackout to prevent the Sahrawi journalists from exercising their profession. We are working at the level of Ras TV. We are facing enormous difficulties to provide information. Journalists are forbidden to cover events and to go on the ground for live coverage. It is a total muslin of the Sahrawi media. We have many correspondents, whether in the occupied territories or abroad, in the countries where our community is concentrated. These exchanges that allow us to better carry out our cause. Despite the blackout imposed by the Makhzen on the Sahrawi media, the special envoys managed to collect the material and to share the information with foreign channels. It often happens they constitute an event themselves after their arrest and full coverage. Many journalists have found themselves behind bars for simply covering an event. They were judged for acts they didn't commit. The Sahrawi cause is once again at the forefront of the international scene in relation to what is happening on the front, and thanks to the diplomatic efforts and the crisis experienced by the Makhzen. The media isolation of the rust, however, doesn't prevent the Sahrawis from making their cause better known on the international scene.
On the international scene, a meeting of troop contributing countries to the United Nations mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, is to be held in New York, while the UN body is preparing to examine at the end of this month the renewal of the mandate of this mission. The Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Ashtiya affirmed on Monday that the crime committed by the Zionist occupier in the occupied Palestinian territories is an organized state terrorism. He calls on the international community to criminalize these acts and to put the Zionist settler gangs on terrorists list, deploring the silence of the international community on the crimes of the Zionist occupier, considering it an encouragement for the latter to go forward with its policy. The Palestinian premier highlighted that the condemning and disapproving statements are no longer enough. The state of health of sick Palestinian detainees is very critical. This was affirmed by the Palestinian Commission for Prisoners and Former Prisoners Affairs, deploring medical negligence and unhuman conditions of detention at the level of the prisons of the Zionist occupation after the visit paid by the lawyer of the Commission of Negev prison. The Commission confirmed that several Palestinian detainees suffered from medical negligence, according to a report by the Commission. The Commission that imputed the entire responsibility to the prison administration of the Zionist occupation, calling on the international and human rights institutions to protect them. Back to Algeria, more precisely to Tlemcen, with this trip to the famous Souk al-Qasayriya, a site that is full of history combined with authenticity and modernity. Najah Tayyar has the details.
We are at the heart of the city of Tlemcen, more precisely in the famous Souk of al-Qasayriya. Here prevails a very particular atmosphere where the smells of spices and other local products are present everywhere, offering visitors from all over the country 1,001 scents and colors. During our visit, we were challenged by the singular affluence in this spices store, better known as the Kak. Here, the craft of spices preparation has been passed down from generation to another since the 19th century. This spices store belonged to my grandfather. It opened its doors in 1895. He began to prepare his own spices blend, which he had known at the time. A great success, and since then people come from everywhere and even from abroad to buy their spices prepared with love. In addition to its usual customers, Anis receives dozens of customers every day from abroad, especially to stock up on spices. This shop is nostalgic. It reminds us of our ancestors. There is a great difference between the bread that we used to make at home and the one we're buying now. I prefer everything that's handmade. That is why we come here for shopping. All those we met on the spot testify the singularity of this unique shop, a place steeped in history, combining authenticity and modernity.
And with that, our news edition comes to a close. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely night.